First thing that I do when I start out on a project is research, and research is really one of the most important parts of any project because it gives you a good understanding of what it is that you need to create. So sometimes that research is given to me by other folks in the art department, or maybe an art director or a director, and then I either can take that and move forward with it, and sometimes if it's not clear I can maybe ask some questions or do some augmented research on top of what is given to me to make sure that I have the knowledge and understanding of the subject matter before I proceed to work. So one of the things I wanted to point out are these three terms that are used interchangeably, but they're a little bit different. Data, information, and knowledge. So a lot of times when you see reference that's presented, it's usually a collage of images. And to me, that's data. If I just see a collage of images, even though they are about the subject matter, they might have a lot of useful stuff, but they're just jumbled together in kind of a large image, so it doesn't really convey or inform me. So then I would need to take those images and maybe break them out into groups, have some call-outs with text to explain certain things, and that is a much more valuable reference sheet for me. And a lot of times I get research that's done in that way, where it is informing me or it's information, and it does definitely help me along what I need to do. Now, that's definitely a fuller understanding of something than just random data, which are facts, figures, and images. Information is that those facts, figures, and images put together in some sort of a logical presentation where I can understand more about what they are. And furthermore, knowledge is kind of the next level, and knowledge is even a more understanding of your subject matter. So even if it's something that you're not familiar with, maybe talking to some people about it, finding out more, watching a documentary, or even actually going out and experiencing whatever it is yourself. So if you are tasked with designing, let's say, an armored vehicle like we are here, maybe going out and seeing some armored vehicles, getting in them, opening and closing the doors, looking at all the different components in there, will give you a better understanding of what it is and better knowledge. And that's basically what I mean by visual vocabulary, is that over time you will build this knowledge that you have of your subject matter, and as you have that knowledge, it makes you a more valuable artist and allows you to create more convincible images and concepts. And also, I want to point out that non-visual reference is important as well. And what I mean by non-visual reference is that it's not just images, but it's also maybe some textual information that you can read up on, or a movie or documentary that you can watch. Maybe it is talking to some people and interviewing them about the subject matter if they have direct interaction with it. And also experiencing it yourself, as I mentioned, is really important. So if you just have images that you did from a Google search, that might be a good start, but that will definitely not give you the richness of having a well-developed visual vocabulary. And most of the prominent artists out there have a good visual vocabulary, and they really have a good understanding of their subject matter. Now, to juxtapose that with kind of what also happens, and it's kind of sad that it does, is that a lot of artists just go off of their visual memory, and unless you have an eidetic memory or photographic memory, a lot of times what you are remembering is incorrect. So it's always good to have done the research and base whatever it is you're creating on something that has a good foundation in your understanding, and that way you don't take any unfounded creative freedoms to make things that are not feasible, are uncanny, and cause a revulsion in your audience. So sadly, some of those things even make it all the way to production, and then they get ridiculed in the eternity that they are visible. So again, just doing a little bit of research, doing a little bit of understanding of your subject matter really makes a huge difference, and the time should be devoted to it. Even in the fastest, most hurried production, a good amount of research will save a lot of time in revisions and going back to the drawing board, and will produce a more polished and effective result. So the first and probably the most vital part of doing research is specifically for concept artists, is gathering visual reference. And a lot of times people just go to Google and do an image search and grab a bunch of images from there and make a collage of them and call it a day. And I think you can do much better than that. So here, for example, I have done that. I've gotten to Google and done a search on armored vehicle people mover and done the image search on it, and have gotten a body of results here. And every day I do this, I get different results. So it's not really predictable, meaning that the results I get are subject to Google's algorithms and also possibly what other people have found useful. So they might not be looking for what you're looking for, so you could be maybe more specific in your search terms. But all in all, I think this is a good place to start. Definitely not where you want to stop. So you can maybe gather some images from here, but I think you can do better by just going to a service like Pinterest. And Pinterest is more of a curated version of, I guess, Google image search, but it also has a bunch of ads that you have to contend with. So here we can look through, and maybe if this is something that's interesting to us, if we click on it, what's really nice is that it gives us further images that are more streamlined to that specific search that I did. So since I found this interesting, somehow Pinterest found similar images. And let's say if I go to this one, it will find similar images to this one and whatnot. And it's really useful and more kind of honed in on exactly what you're looking for. So I find this to be a little bit more useful, but also it does have some of its limitations, which is if I find an image here, grabbing that specific image is a little bit more difficult, because it might be, if you click on it, it might land on a page that's no longer there, or it might land on a page that has a bunch of images that are no longer available, or they are too many to find the specific one that you're looking for. So yeah, I mean, Pinterest is a little bit better than doing a image search on Google, but again, it has its limitations. So you can go to more of a predictable place to find exactly what you're looking for, and military.com is pretty useful. And if you go to Military Life and Equipment Guide, here it's got all the kind of current equipment, at least the US current equipment, and it basically has it by different departments. So here, if you want to go see what's in the Marine Corps, you can click on that, and you can see that it shows you all the different equipment that is in the Marine Corps. And if you are interested in a specific topic, like let's say this Hercules recovery vehicle, if you click on it, it goes to that page. It has some images for you. Usually they're good images. And also, in addition to that, it has a bunch of text about it. So here I'll go ahead and go to maybe the M1 Abrams tank. And you can see that it has a bunch of information, specifications and whatnot that you can use and understand and read up on. Sometimes it has some videos you can watch. So this is kind of a more predictable and intentional internet than just doing a very kind of general search on Google. And of course, to take this even a step further, you can go to books. And books are really super valuable because they are curated. They have the author has done their research, and since it costs a little bit of money to produce a book, then you know that they have done their homework and they've put a comprehensive group of images and text together for you to do your research on. So I find books to be a lot more valuable than just an internet search, because again, they are combined together and they're within certain boundaries and they give you good information. Now I should mention that a lot of these books are inexpensive, but some of them are expensive, and if you do stumble onto something that you think is really useful and you want it, you can always get it used. And again, you don't really need a crisp new book. You can get a used version of it. Usually, for example, for this one, you can even get it for almost $2, which is not really that much. And so, you know, depending on what your budget is, you can put together a pretty good library of books, and they will really augment what you've got collected from the internet as well. And if you don't want to spend the money, if you have public libraries near you, so here the Los Angeles Public Library is really has a wealth of books. And here I just typed in tanks and armor, and it found 154 books. And I can place these on hold and have them delivered to a library near me. Go check them out. Spend the time doing the research with them, and then return them for other people to use. So between Amazon and the public library, I think you can get a very rich selection of books to go off of. And again, that will really raise your game to the next level. It's also important to have a personal library of books that you can refer to again and again. So I would highly recommend starting that if you don't already have a bunch of books in your library. It's never too late to start. And if you go back to your books whenever you're doing your research, it will definitely help to have it right on your shelf in wherever your workplace is. Now, the other thing I talked about is documentaries, and this is a good one I watched on this specific topic, which is The Age of Tanks, and this is on Netflix. And I think it's about 4 episodes, and it really talks about the tanks, of where they started, what they were for, and how they evolved throughout the years. So just watching 2 or 3 documentaries like this will really enrich you and give you some good experience and knowledge about what you're working on. And in addition to that, if you want to leave your house and go out, or leave your workplace and go out and actually experience these things, there's always museums. So here there's the American Military Museum in LA that you can go visit. And you can see that they have a bunch of vehicles that you can actually look at up close, and some maybe possibly go into and get a better understanding of what these things look like, what the patina is on them, and what's the wear and tear, what happens when you open the door, what these mechanisms actually do. So you can get a better idea of what it is that you're working on by actually experiencing it. And if a museum has things that are more of a prior age, and you want to see things that are more modern, you can always go to something like an air show. So this is the Miramar Air Show that happens once a year in LA. And actually in San Diego, and they usually have a good number of modern equipment that you can check out up close and get a better idea of. So once again, there are different levels of knowledge, and whatever you're working on, the further you go in what you're doing, if you read a book, you're better off than looking at images on the internet. If you watch a documentary, you're better off than just the first 2. And then if you actually go and experience it yourself, that really builds your visual vocabulary to a state where you are a more valuable artist and can do better work because you have a better understanding of what it is that you are making. So again, here, just a summary. Books are important, documentaries are good, and tactile reference is good too. Sometimes if you get a toy of the subject matter or build a plastic model kit, that'll help. And then, of course, you can also generate your own reference. So personal observation is always key for an artist. So if you personally observe what it is that you're going to replicate or base your design from, that really helps. And then maybe documenting it for future times. You can maybe write some notes down and do your own photography. So instead of going off images on the internet, maybe take some pictures yourself. And if you don't have time, it's always great to be able to use some sort of a service or a library to get you that information as well. One of the things I thought would be important to include in the reference gathering section of this workshop is looking through non-digital reference, and here is kind of a basic starting point, which are these types of books that cover a range of different tanks, let's say, or machines or cars or whatnot. They usually have a period that they cover, so this one's 1991 to present day, and it's modern tanks and armored fighting vehicles. So I found this to be kind of a good place to start. And the reason is because it has a blurb about the different tanks. So what we're designing is close to a tank. So understanding how tanks work, understanding some information about them is kind of important. And the other thing that's kind of nice that I also value and include in my work as well is this box, this call out that basically gives you the specifications of the different tanks. So if you look at enough of these, then you can turn around and make one of your own for whatever it is that you're designing. So here, for example, it tells you for this tank what year it was produced, the number that was produced, the weight, the length, the dimensions pretty much, the type of engine it has, its maximum speed, how many people are in it, the crew, the type of armor it has, the main armament, and whatnot. So if you look at that and you extrapolate it out to what you're building and you put in some sort of requirements, then that kind of makes your work a little bit more grounded in reality, and also narrows down the different options that you have when you're designing, so you can kind of design to a specific idea versus just randomly adding shapes. Another thing that's nice about these books is it has different variants. So here you can see this variant, for example, has these cylindrical shapes and they look visually interesting. So maybe understand a little bit of the function of what they are and maybe use that in your model as well. Another thing that these books have that's really useful are these cutouts. And in these cutouts, they usually just cut out different sections of the outside to show you what's going on inside. So here, for example, is where the driver sits, the periscopic or the periscope kind of mirrored windows that it has, so he can see outside when the hatch is closed, where the gunner is, where the ammo is stored, and where the engine is. So again, this gives you an idea of where things are in a tank, and so you can kind of lay things out that way in whatever it is that you're working on. Here's another cutout, and I found some really useful photos in here for what we're doing. For example, the hatch in the back. Here's a picture of it in action, so to speak. The hatch is open. There's people standing around in it, so this gives you an idea of the scale, how people get in, how people get out. And here's another kind of useful image that I found, which is the tank in kind of a weathery condition. So just from a composition perspective, there's some good photos in these books too. And they vary in usefulness, but I'm sure if you look through a few of them, just to start out with, it's a great place to start. Now, the other type of book that I really, really like and refer to quite a bit is this series from Squadron Signal. And these books are aimed towards hobbyists and plastic model kit builders. However, they have a lot of usefulness for us too, because they have very detailed images in them. So here, for example, if I look at this image right here, it has some nice kind of illustrations of the different evolutionary aspects of the Bradley tank and the different uses for it. Has some callouts for what the things are on it, so you have an idea of what these are used for, and so you don't just randomly add shapes to the outside of your mech, that there is a reason for them to be there. There's some really great detailed images of the inside. So here is maybe the driver's seat and what it looks like, and shows you different variations in how they are inside. Just really super, super useful to look at when you're making your own design. And so it's kind of grounded in something that really exists, and maybe you can include some of these elements that make sense, so that when somebody's looking at them, it's believable, that they kind of understand that this is something that could possibly happen. Another thing that's nice in here is it shows you the different camouflages that it has, and you can just photograph these and use them as swatches. when you are texturing your vehicle. So you can understand the different camo patterns and what they do, maybe what the information is on them. So I find these books to be super, super useful. They have two different versions. They have the In Action series, which are good. And these are really inexpensive. They're about maybe $20 on Amazon, and you can probably find them cheaper for a few dollars if you look. The other series that they have is this Walk Around series, and unfortunately they don't really have one of a modern tank, so I'm using this airplane one as an example. They have some World War II ones, but I didn't really think they were pertinent to what we're talking about. So if you look at these books, the Walk Around books, there's a lot more detail. So one of the things that I really like about them is that they have detailed information about the cockpits. So here's a cockpit with all the different callouts of all the different instruments, so you can get an idea of what the instruments are. So when you're designing your own cockpit, that you can also work on creating one that is realistic and also grounded with different instruments that make sense. And, you know, they walk around the plane, they take a lot of photos, really useful ones. So here's one, for example, for this air brake over here, and you can see how the piston opens up. So it opens up from the bottom, not the top. And I see so many concept designs online that just don't look right. And so if you build your visual vocabulary looking at these images, even if you spend a few hours before you start, I think it helps ground your work in a way where it's more believable. And also, it makes it more feasible. And if they're going to actually build it in for a production, that it makes sense. So here's a kind of just a little panel that's taken out and gives you an idea of like these bars that are there for support. And they also add some visual interest, so you can kind of keep an eye on that. Here's an external cannon and how it opens up from the top for it to be serviced, or how the ammo gets loaded and whatnot. So I find these books, again, to be super, super useful, and I wish they had more of these for the for modern tanks. But I think that that if you know, if you keep your eye on it, if you just pick 2 or 3 tanks and just kind of keep looking every once in a while, they'll have them, and then you can maybe pick them up. So yeah, these walk around books are really very, very nice to look through, and I find them to be super, super useful. And even though this is an airplane, I can apply some of these things into a mech design as well. Now, another type of book, and these are books that I've had for a long time. I've bound them. This actually is a magazine, not even a book. And this is a book that I used to, or a magazine that I used to collect when I was much younger. And it's called Military Enthusiast, and you can see the pages are a little bit yellowed. But the reason why I thought I'd include this as well is because these types of magazines not only have specifications, which are good to know, but it also has stories, like what would a sortie look like for an A-10, or maybe some pilot's story of what they did. And just reading a few of these, and even reading some books that basically talk about the topic but don't have pictures, might be super, super useful, because it kind of adds to the story aspect of what you're working on. So you can include that maybe in the composition of when you're finally done with your model, or it could also serve as a kind of a mindset that puts you in the kind of the mentality of what it would be like to be in one of these things and be in an action situation. So here's one on the Merkava tank, for example, and it shows it to you in action, shows where it is in kind of a muddy situation here, that there are different weather conditions that these have to function in. And just getting an idea of these types of things is super useful. And reading a book or two just to add to the story aspect and scenario aspect of it is really useful. And then last but not least, I also want to talk about something that helps me as well, and which is the tactile knowledge of the subject matter. So here's a plastic model kit from this company I really like called Tamiya. They usually have really great artwork on their boxes, and their models are really well detailed. First thing that's super important about these is the instruction sheet. And in the instruction sheet, you can see a lot of interesting stuff, like how it's built, first of all, and then also how it articulates. So even if you don't build this, and if you just look at the instruction sheet, it's super useful because it tells you where the hinges are, how things bend and turn, how they're attached, how they connect, how the elements are added to it. And also in the back, it shows you the decals and what gets put on here. So you don't randomly just add numbers and decals on it, that you have a purpose. So if there's something is dangerous and you have a danger decal, that it goes in a place where it makes sense and it's not just randomly added to a model. So instruction sheet is a good place to start. And then after that, it's kind of nice to get tactile information about the different pieces. So if you're looking at a piece like this, for example, you can get an idea of how this is laid out. Here, for example, you can understand that the vents on this tank are in the back here, where it's safe, and there's a turret that goes on top. So it's safe for the air to come in and out, but also it is not exposed to the elements outside. You can find out how the cut lines are set. Just getting an idea of what a tread looks like, looking at it and getting a tactile feeling of it is nice. Here are some pieces like the radar, for example, and getting an idea of what it is like. This piece attaches to the front of it, what the purpose of it is. So it just kind of gets you thinking about what these are and how they could be useful in what you're creating. So it's kind of nice to go through the different parts and look at them and get a better understanding of how they're laid out. And usually there's a figure as well, so which gives you an idea of scale of the subject matter that you're working on. So building one of these things, or not even building it, but getting it and taking a look at it really helps. Sometimes it also helps to get like a pre-built toy or model of what it is that you are making as well. But getting just that tactile understanding, non-digital understanding of it also helps to know how things work, and also how to get a better idea and a more grounded idea of what it is that you're working on. So hopefully you get the point of non-digital reference being important as well. So this is the type of research you can do at a library, or at your by getting the books and looking through them. And again, spend the time to go look at these things in person as well if you can, and that really makes your work stand out and adds to your visual vocabulary that you can use from that point forward. One thing I thought would be a good thing to mention in this workshop also is that when you do your research and you gather all those images and the information, it's always good to kind of have some sort of a reference library of your own that you can start to keep all these images and information in, so that at some point, if you have a similar project that comes up, which if you're known for a specific thing, they will, you can always refer back to that same library for the information and not have to do the research all over again. So it's a good idea to just have a good digital reference library on your hard drive, on something portable maybe that you can take with you to projects, or maybe even in the cloud somewhere. And of course, augment that with an actual tactile library of books that you can refer to again and again and again. I find my library very useful. I'm always pulling books out and looking through them whenever I have projects, and it's really a very valuable thing to have close to you and available whenever you need it. And so once you have a lot of images, it's always good to organize them as well. And there is software to organize photographs, so they work perfectly for this purpose. I use Adobe Bridge, but I know a lot of folks that use some of the other software applications that I mentioned here, so you can try them out, see which one works better for you. And also I use an add-on for the file system. I use Mystic Thumbs, and what that allows me to do is, as I'm looking at the different folders I have my images in, it shows me thumbnails of everything. So I know the operating system can give you some other things, like Windows, for example, gives you JPEG and PNG and some other formats, but Mystic Thumbs also gives me PSD files, which is really useful, Photoshop files. And so I find that to be super, super useful in addition to Adobe Bridge. The advantage of having Adobe Bridge, of course, is that you can tag your images with metadata, and that makes searches a lot faster and more efficient. So definitely keep your own reference library and use a good naming convention. A lot of times, and I'm guilty of this as well, the images are what Google called them, so they're a string of letters and numbers. Which might not be very descriptive, so that's why I use Mystic Thumbs, because it definitely, a thumbnail gives me more information than the name would. But maybe having those in some sort of a categorized folder structure helps. And so, for example, if you have animals in a folder, you can have subfolders of those that could be land, sea, and air. And then on land, you can have a folder that's canines and feline and reptilian and whatnot. So it's kind of nice to have a kind of a reference library of your own. And you can refer to it a lot quicker than going out into the internet. And if there are certain things that you like and you find to be useful, you can always go back to those in your own personal library. Once you have all your images gathered, it is always good to put them in some sort of presentable and easily referenceable format. And for that, I usually use a collection or knolling software. I use PureRef, which I really like, and there's an equally good software out there called Quadro with a K. I think both of these are free, or they cost a nominal fee, but they are very, very useful, and I use them all the time. But of course, if you're really comfortable with Photoshop, you can always use that as well. So between those two, you can, between either these two apps or Photoshop, you can definitely get a good way to put all those images together. And I also want to stress that you should not just create a random collage of the images, but maybe group them together based on some of these categories or categories of your own. So let's go ahead and take a look at the one we're going to use for this project. So here I've broken it down by inspiration, sketches, scenario, parts and anatomy, lighting, colors, materials, hatch, interior, and guns. So basically this is just inspiration, then kind of honing into scenarios and story, and then specific parts, and then presentation. So what I like about PureRef, again, is that it's very easy to kind of create a collage like this. And so here, if there's a specific topic that you are really interested in, or an image that you want to bring to the forefront, it's just as easy as you just click on it and hit the spacebar, and that basically brings it to the forefront. And then you can look at it in detail, and then spacebar again to pop back out. You can, again, put in notes as to what it is. And so here's kind of a good group of images that I thought would be pertinent for what I'm using. And so this would be under inspiration. So if I need inspiration while I'm working, I can just jump to this area. This is a sketch that I did for when I was kind of brainstorming on this idea. And these I do offline, so I don't usually do them when I'm sitting at the computer. I usually either do them on my iPad when I'm in a waiting room or something like that, or I'm out and about, have a few minutes, or I can do them on a piece of paper and just take a photo of them with my phone and pop it in here. So here I did a quick line sketch and maybe figured out the mechanism of how the guns would work. Maybe they lift up and turn around this way. Then I put the people in there and how they would be kind of positioned in the mech. And did a little bit of shading, but again, not really too much detail, because I know that what I'm doing here is just kind of putting some ideas together, and that most of my work is going to be done in 3D. Here's some scenarios, and these are more story-based. So here I can see different things that are going on. So you can see here, maybe this one would be a scenario of where that tank would be, how people would go in and out of it if it can't lower itself down to the ground. Maybe some sort of a carrier to take it around, some scenarios of it in action, some kind of beauty shots, maybe some pictures of it in action or sorts, and also maybe pictures of people interacting with them. And also maybe just some different details that I find interesting. So these are more based on story. They could be grouped with inspiration, but they could also be separated out. And then we go into parts and anatomy. So here, since it's a multipedal system, I looked at existing multipedal structures, like the anatomy of, let's say, a crab. or some other type of mechanical creature that has multiple legs, maybe some insects, maybe some microbes or small microscopic elements. And here I can see different leg structures of different animals. So I found these to be interesting. I grouped them in here. Here I've got just a section on the hatch itself of how they open, what they look like inside, how the seating arrangements are and whatnot. And then I also have another separate section on interiors, maybe where the pilot sits and what the cockpit looks like and all that good stuff. So again, I can just refer to this section then. And then here for presentation, I've got a section on lighting, maybe some colors I would like to use. So I could just generate some colors from these swatches, some from movies that I like, some from other models, and some from just random images that have elements that I think are interesting. And then also here I have a section for materials. So I kind of like this metallic material here. And I also like the way this matte surface is juxtaposed with the shiny surface. So each one of these gave me a little bit of something that I think I would want to use as materials on the mech. So, and of course, I guess I forgot this section, which is a section on guns. And so I could use this as reference for the types of guns and ammo that are going to be on the mech. So again, it's a nice way to organize these. This was very quickly, I built this very quickly just by dragging the images into it and then selecting them and organizing them and putting them together. And PureRef is really a very cool way, has a really cool way of doing these in a rapid fashion, and that's exactly what its aim is. So you just save them as this and open them, and you can it's one file, and you can transfer that file over to your thumb drive or to the cloud or whatever and share it with your friends. Now, another thing I also did as far as research is concerned is built this quick spec sheet that I did in Word. And here in this one, I basically am making this more like some of the things we saw in the books earlier, where I have a name for the mech, and so we're going to call it the P9 Combat Personnel Insertion Extraction Mech, or PIX. And here's a little scenario of where it could be used, just kind of to add to the lore of it, I guess, and some of the functions that it has, the crew, the passengers, different variants that it could have, the type of shielding it has, the ambulation, how it moves, maybe what the attachments are for the arm, the utility arm, the fuel that it uses, the range that it has, the engine power plant, the speed, the armament, weight, prominent features, and of course the price. So all these kind of add more to the idea of what it is that you're building, gives you more knowledge of what you're working on, and so this way you can easily present the information to somebody else, or you can use the information yourself just to refer to again and again and again. Usually when I'm working, I always have a reference sheet up and I keep referring to it to get some of the some ideas on what I'm working and to make my workflow a lot faster.